Hi, thanks for joining me on Give Cheese a Chance, where I encourage you to make cheese at home. I'm Marianne. Today we're going to be talking about triple cream cheeses, and I do have some examples in front of me here for you to see. This one here is Chateau de Bourgogne, and this one is Le Soyeux. You might be familiar with another famous triple cream cheese called Saint-André. That one's also fantastic. So many of them are delicious, actually. But if you're not familiar with those triple cream cheeses, then you might be familiar with their cousin, camembert and brie. So all of these are in the same family. They're all made from cow's milk. They all originate from France, and they are considered bloomies or surface ripened cheeses. They have this beautiful white fungal coat, which is edible and delicious, and it has a mushroomy flavor. So how are triple cream cheeses different than camemberts and brie? Well, first of all, you can see that a triple cream cheese is much thicker. This is about 3 inches thick, as opposed to 1 or 1.5 inch thick camemberts and bries. And the taste is quite different. The taste of a triple cream is almost like you've taken the taste of a camembert and a brie and made it more delicious, in my opinion. It's like a very buttery or sour cream flavor, and that's because triple cream cheeses have much more fat in them than a standard or regular camembert or brie. And while you can easily buy triple creams from the store, I make mine at home, and these are my own triple creams. And I'm going to show you how you can make your own triple cream cheese at home right now. Let's make our own triple creams in my kitchen. And as a bonus, you'll get to see some cheese professionals try this cheese at the end of this video, so stick around. To start this recipe, we're going to be putting about 900 milliliters of heavy cream or whipping cream into our pot. I'm going to turn on the heat already to very, very low, just to start to increase the temperature of this heavy cream. And to this heavy cream, I'm going to be adding some regular whole milk. This is pasteurized but unhomogenized. I find it works the best for this recipe, so I need 9 liters added to the heavy cream that's already in the pot. One note about using unhomogenized milk in your cheese making recipes. As the unhomogenized milk travels on trucks from the dairy to your grocery store, those bags get shaken a little bit. And that means that sometimes the fat will congeal together, making clumps of fat in your milk. So don't worry about that too much. We need that fat in our cheeses. It'll give it a delicious, luscious flavor. Now that the milk has been mixed with the heavy cream, I'm going to slowly heat the entire pot until the milk reaches 30 degrees Celsius, which is about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And every couple of minutes, I'm going to stir the milk so that the warmer milk at the bottom of the pot mixes with the cooler milk on the top. So as soon as it reaches that target temperature of 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to turn off the stove. Well, we've reached our target temperature, so let's turn off the heat. And let's add our cultures. I'm using 1/4 teaspoon of Flora Danica for this recipe, but if you don't have that, you can use another substitute like MM100. You'll also need 1/8 of a teaspoon of Penicillium candidum and 1/64 of a teaspoon of Geotrichum candidum. I like to use version number 15. To avoid the cultures from clumping, I'm going to let them sit on the surface of the milk for about a minute before mixing them in. Now that the 1 minute is over, I'm stirring the cultures into the pot, and I'm making sure that those cultures are mixed thoroughly. That means I might have to stir for about a minute or two. I've stopped stirring, and now I put a lid onto the pot. I want to give the bacteria that I've just added a good 3 hours to start multiplying and creating acid in the milk. So I'm going to come back in about 3 hours and then add the rennet and calcium chloride. I don't want to add it too soon. I really want to start that acidification process. I want to make sure that it's underway before I add the rennet and the calcium chloride. So I'll see you in about 3 hours. When you're coming to the end of your incubation time, you can prepare your calcium chloride and rennet solutions. Add a half teaspoon of calcium chloride solution, 33% strength, into a quarter cup of non-chlorinated water, and into another bowl, add a quarter teaspoon of double strength liquid rennet into a quarter cup of non-chlorinated water. Our 3-hour timer is now up, so we can add our calcium chloride and rennet solutions into the milk. And you can see all of that butter fat sitting on the surface of our milk. So let's add our calcium chloride solution and our rennet solution and stir for 1 minute. And at the end of our 1 minute of stirring, we're going to still the milk, cover the pot, and we're going to let it sit undisturbed for 90 minutes. And during that time, the rennet is going to convert our liquid milk into a gel-like state. While you're waiting for the 90 minutes to pass, fill a pot with water and sterilize a large piece of butter muslin fabric by boiling it for 15 minutes and then letting it cool. Then set up a couple of strainers in your kitchen sink and cover them with your sterilized fabric. The 90 minutes is now up, so let's look inside the pot. And I'm sure we're going to have a good curd set, but let's check anyway. We can see all the buttery fat that is sitting on top, but we're going to look beyond that to the curd underneath. It breaks open very well. Now it's time to cut our curd into cubes, which are about 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch in dimension. Now we're going to go on a 90-degree angle and make parallel cuts through the pot at 90 degrees. I also have to make horizontal cuts, so that's a little bit more challenging, but we're going to do our best. Now we've cut the curd into cubes. We're going to do nothing for 5 minutes while the curds heal. So we just wait 5 minutes and come back. The next step is to stir these curds very slowly and very gently for about 10 minutes. We just want to encourage some moisture to be released from our cubes. So I have a very long spatula. I'm not sure if this is a spatula, but I'm going to call it a spatula, and I'm going to run it along the inside edge of the pot very slowly. And that's how I'm going to separate the cubes from each other, especially at the beginning. So I have finished stirring for 10 minutes. I'm now going to cover the pot. I'm going to let everything sit for about 5 minutes. As you can see, I brought my pot over to the sink, and we are going to pre-drain our curds before we put them into our molds. So I have a large bowl here which has a handle. It's going to make it very easy for me to scoop the curds and transfer them to our cloth-lined strainers that we set up earlier. You can hear a lot of the liquid that is going into the sink. I'm going to let these drain for about 30 minutes, but halfway through, I'm going to come by and encourage more draining by lifting up the sides of the fabric. And as I do that, more liquid will go into the sink. My 30-minute drainage period is over. It's time to transfer all of our curds into our molds. I am using camembert-shaped molds, and you can use 3 or 4, it depends on the final size of the cheese that you want. I want a slightly taller cheese, so I'm going to use only 3 today. I have set my camembert molds over a roasting rack, so all of the liquid will accumulate at the bottom of the roasting rack. And underneath each camembert mold, I have a piece of stiff matting and a little board, and these 2 things are going to really help me to flip my cheeses after I fill them with curd. So let's use a large ladle to scoop all of our drained curd into our forms. Now all of my curds have been transferred into my 3 camembert shaped molds. We have to flip these cheeses 5 times over the next 12 hours. And I want to flip them as soon as the level of this curd reaches the top of this form. I can't flip them right now or I'll squish the curds. So in about 15 to 20 minutes, the curds will have shrunk to the top of this form. And that's when I'm going to do my first flip. And in order to do that, we're going to take another piece of this plastic matting, place it on top of one of the molds, and then take another piece of hardboard and place it on top as well. This will make it really easy for me to flip this cheese because the bottom of this form and the top of the form are open. So I'm going to flip the cheese in one solid motion. There we go. And place it back down. So I'll do that for the other 2 cheeses as well. And if you can't find any of this plastic matting, you can just use a Japanese sushi mat and it works really well too. I am going to cover these cheeses with a very clean tea towel to make sure that no dust or anything like that falls on my cheeses. Flip number 2. Flip number 3. Well, it is late at night now and I'm going to do my 4th flip, but I'm going to leave my 5th flip for tomorrow morning. So I'm going to do this when I go to bed. Well, there you go. Nighty night to you, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Oh, good morning. I've just had my coffee and I'm ready to face the world. In fact, I'm ready to see the cheese. Let's see how the cheese did overnight. Wow. Salt does 3 things. It preserves the cheese longer, it enhances the flavor, and it mitigates or slows down the growth of the white mold fungus that will be developing over the next week on these cheeses. We want the final salt concentration within the cheeses to be between 1.5 and 2%. So, we are going to salt based on the upper end of that range. We're going to salt at 2% so that if we lose some salt, it'll be in the range of between 1.5 and 2. So let's measure the weight of our cheeses so we know how much salt to add. And I'm going to flip the cheese at the same time. The average weight of our cheeses is 700 grams. So let's multiply 700 grams by 0.02, which is the percentage of salt that we want, and that will give us 14. We need 14 grams of salt to be applied to the surface of each cheese. Let's measure out our salt. I find the best way to salt these cheeses is to dump the salt into a casserole dish and just roll my cheeses around in the salt. And then I rub them afterwards to make sure they're fully coated. And I make sure that all of the salt is applied to the surface of the cheese before moving on to the next cheese. Okay, all of the cheeses have been salted. The salt that we added to the surfaces of these cheeses is going to draw moisture out of the cheese and create a wet surface. And I do not want to put wet cheeses into my ripening box and into the cold storage room at the end of the day. So I have to dry these cheeses, and I'm going to use a fan to create air circulation around these cheeses to dry them. Halfway through the day, I'm going to come back and flip these cheeses so the other side gets dried as well. It's now the end of day 2 and our triple cream cheeses are ready to be aged. I have a ripening box here, and at the bottom of the ripening box I have a paper towel and 2 Japanese sushi mats. The paper towel is going to absorb any excess moisture that accumulates at the bottom of the box, and the sushi mats are going to make sure that the cheeses do not sit on the bottom of the box. It will allow some airflow to reach the bottom of the cheeses, and of course there will be air circulating around the sides and the top of the cheese as well. So let's put our cheeses inside of our ripening box. I want a humidity level inside of this box to be 90 to 95%. And it might be hard to achieve that humidity. So I have a paper towel that I have soaked with some water, and I'm going to tuck it into the corner of this box. That will provide some humidity inside the box, but I don't want it to be so high that it's a wet environment. I just want a humid environment. And to control the level of humidity, I can also use my lid. If I put the lid directly onto this box, it's going to create stagnant air inside the box, and I don't want that. I want some humidity inside the box, but also airflow. I want air to go in and out of the box, so I'm going to keep the lid slightly askew. And I'm going to take this box and put it in my basement cold room, which is about 9 or 10 degrees Celsius right now, or about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is a very good temperature for ripening these cheeses. It's important to flip these cheeses every day to maintain their shape and encourage the fungal hyphae to coat the cheese evenly. Make sure you remove any moisture at the bottom of the box by wiping it away with a paper towel. And in about a week, the white mold will start to show up, a little patchy at first, but in a few more days, these cheeses will be completely covered. That's the time when you should wrap them in a specialty cheese paper made for bloomy rinds. These papers will keep in some humidity while still allowing for some airflow. After I've wrapped my cheeses, I put them in my regular 4 degrees Celsius fridge because I want to slow down the maturation rate. You'll still need to keep these cheeses in a box to stop them from losing too much moisture in your fridge though. Here are some triple cream cheeses that I made using this very same recipe several weeks ago, and I wanted to show you the difference between a younger version of the cheese and a slightly older version of the cheese. So let's unwrap them and take a look inside. I've unwrapped 3 different batches. This one is over 60 days old. This one is about 50 days old, and this one is about 40 days old. So on the surface, I think that they look pretty good. They do remind me of the popular Saint-André cheeses or the Brillat-Savarin cheeses, which are produced in France. They have a beautiful white coat and a bit of a wrinkly rind, but they smell fantastic. So I can't wait to cut into them. Let's take a look at the interiors of these cheeses and see if there's any difference as the cheese goes from 40 to 60 days of age. Well, this one is still pretty firm, I can tell you that. And I can see the paste is still quite chalky, and the entire cheese is still pretty firm, although it does smell very good. Now let's cut the 50-day-old version of this cheese. It's a little bit softer. Wow. Oh. And already I can see that there is a more mature cream line. So the cheese has started to get a little bit runnier underneath the coat. So if I press on this cheese, there is some more give than if I were to press on this cheese. This one is firmer because it is younger, and this one is softer. So what do we expect from the cheese that's more mature? This one being 60 days old, it should be even runnier than this one. And I can see, I'm just touching this cheese right now, and it is very soft. I imagine it is creamier in texture than the younger versions. Let's cut into it. Oh, it's like soft butter. Wow. Wow. Look at that. That is a 60-day-old cheese, and it is perfectly ripe. That's exactly what I expect from a triple cream cheese like a Saint-André or a Brillat-Savarin. So let's have a taste of these cheeses so we can see how the taste changes as the cheeses mature. It's starting to get that smooth texture. You can see that the interior is starting to become softer, and especially at room temperature, there's that beautiful stretchiness to the cheese. It's already very good. Oh gosh, it is so flavorful already. Yeah. It really is lovely. Wow. This batch is delicious too. I would be proud to serve either of these on a cheese board. And now let's try the ripest version. Wow. You can see how that interior really is becoming smoother and more runny. There is so much difference between the younger version and the older version. This one has more depth of flavor. I really encourage you to age your cheeses to 60 days if possible. Age your cheese for even 90 days. Look at this cheese that I aged for 90 days. The interior paste became so soft that I could scoop it up with a spoon. And just for fun, I gathered all of my courage and I took my triple cream cheese to a New York cheese conference where I asked some cheese professionals to try it and give me their thoughts. Here's what they said.
Smelling it, like it's like nice, like sweet cream, like a little earthy from the rind, but like not like offensive in like any way, not like too intense in either direction. And then like tasting it, like I'm hit with that like sweetness right away, but it turns into like a bit of like a tart, like kind of like sour cream situation. That's also really nice. The paste is like super like ooey gooey, like just what you want from a triple creme. And then it lingers in like a really like calm way, like it doesn't like get any more sour. The sweetness kind of comes back around. And then it like lingers like very, very clean.
Spreadable cream line.
Sorry, Rachel.
Super light. It feels whipped almost. It hit me with like a little punch of salt, but then it like laid back and let the milk shine through, which is nice because an over salted bloomy I feel like is a balance that you gotta strike, right? The rind is really pleasant. It brings a flavor that's not too overpowering. Maybe a little bit herbaceous. It's really good.
I like the buttery saltiness of it, like the creaminess. Yeah, I love it. And I also like the fact that it has kind of like a saltwatery brine, like a brininess to it, which is amazing, which I think is balanced. Fat, salty, creamy, decadent, silky smooth.
Creamy, definitely creamy. It melts the mold around the outside. Normally there's a chewiness to that, which I'm not a really big fan of. This just melts. Yeah, I need this recipe, please.
Well, I hope you enjoyed learning how to make triple cream cheeses at home. If you did, please click the like button below and make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can see my videos about cheese making at home in the future. For Give Cheese a Chance, I'm Marianne. Happy cheese making!